why the 2026 Mercedes-Benz C63 is the car that nobody's buying. With 671 horsepower, 9-speed automatic, torque vectoring, 0 to 60 under 3 seconds, why isn't everybody jumping on the ship? I want to break this down, give you 5 of the major reasons why that is, and why you might want to wait a couple more years to buy your next AMG. Let's get into it now. When car brands nail it, you know that. They create cars that are in high demand, both new and used. For example, BMW's M340. Yeah, that feels very, very nice. You can't find them with great deals. It's because they're highly sought after and those cars keep getting better generation after generation. But unfortunately, with the Mercedes-Benz C63, we only have to look at the 2026 and compare it to the 2024, when the 2022 model years sold as many as 15,000 units worldwide, and now in 2025, 2026, only 5,000 were sold approximately of the C63. Comparing the two models, of course, both potentially upgraded with an all-wheel drive system, both have 9-speed automatic transmissions, but the 2022 only had 503 horsepower in the C63S, and the latest version actually has 671 horsepower and will absolutely dominate the older version. So what's going on? Why are people not buying it? Well, the conversation extends when we talk about the drivetrains. While they both have great gearboxes and all-wheel drive and a very similar look and design, the fact is, the older version, the 2020, actually has a 4-liter turbocharged V8 engine, which produces amazing sounds and amazing torque. And it's the kind of drivetrain that AMG lovers and enthusiasts and loyalists have loved for generations. I mean, Mercedes-Benz is well known for their V8s and their V12s and their bi-turbos this and their bi-turbos that. They're very, very popular. But when AMG and Mercedes-Benz decided to put a lot more of their eggs in the 4-cylinder turbo hybrid basket, all bets were off. Because the old 2022 had an engine code named the M177, which was a hand-built AMG 4.0 twin-turbo V8 engine. It was a V8, had the turbos mounted tightly in the V for quicker throttle response, redlined to 7,000 RPM, produced as much as 503 horsepower in the S version. The 516 pound-feet of torque produced enough twist to make the car exciting, and it actually had a closed deck design for maximum durability under high boost conditions. The old 2022 was primarily rear-wheel drive, but step up into the S and you had all-wheel drive. Both cars had a 9-speed automatic transmission, and the older car had an electronically controlled limited slip differential. Meantime, statistically, the new car cut the cylinder count in half, and they called an engine now M139, which was a 2-liter turbocharged 4 hand-built inline 4 longitudinal mounted turbo 4-cylinder engine that was direct injected and produced an immense amount of power. As a matter of fact, one of the most powerful per displacement leader across the industry. It was an immense accomplishment for a 4-cylinder engine. That now combined as well with the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle technology meant that you were using a combination of ICE and electric vehicle power to motivate that vehicle down the road to produce a maximum horsepower output of 671 horse versus this 503 on the outgoing car. The bigger headline figures, those 752 pound-feet of torque of twist, meant that this car pulled hard out of the hole. You'd never think it was a 4-cylinder engine. It might have sounded like it, but the way it launched, it felt more like a Ferrari. It also featured a 9-speed automatic transmission, wet clutch system, no torque converter here, and a rear bias via electric motor torque vectoring system. Far more advanced, better handling, faster accelerating, and even a little bit better on fuel. So on every measurable amount, that car was better. The new car was a vast improvement with that M139. It went better, handled better, was more economical, but there was some drawbacks. One of the biggest issues, of course, with the latest generation car, why nobody's buying them, comes down to price. The older car back in 2022 stickered for about $76,200 as a base price, and unfortunately by the time 2025 rolled around, that price crept all the way up to $88,000 base. You start tacking options on, and now all of a sudden you've got a car that costs you $105,000 to $108,000 US to get into a turbocharged 4-cylinder car. So we know the price was a bit of a factor. What about the reliability, durability? People got tired of fixing old, worn-out cars, and many of the old 6.2s had issues with the head shuffling, cam lobes that would wear out, oil leaks. And did that transfer over to the later 4-liter that we found in 2022? Well, valve cover leaks, turbo seals, and those crept in there between 50 to 80,000 miles. Of course, the hot V created other issues, melting hoses, wiring, plastics, that created accelerated wear and potentially some oil burning as you start to see valve guides in the head start to take a toll. Other things like motor mounts also took a toll and wore out quickly because of the additional torque. That V8 engine with all that additional power took a real hammering on motor mounts and bushings throughout, and the entire chassis would twist and turn, and it was hard on the car, so a lot of the chassis parts would squeak and rattle and start to wear out prematurely. How about the later generation in 2026? Different issues: hybrid technology, inverter failures, battery failures, charging issues. It sounded more like a Dyson vacuum cleaner than a roaring AMG V8 engine. And the increased weight took this new AMG up to almost 4,800 pounds, and it was as heavy as many full-size SUVs. So enough about the mumbo jumbo here. Why don't we talk about 5 major reasons, break this down, why the new car is not selling, nobody cares, and nobody's buying them. The first point is it's lost its identity. All AMG lovers and enthusiasts love the V8s or the V12s. By cutting that cylinder count in half with 4 cylinders, nobody wants it. The people that were typically looking for that type of car all of a sudden found like it was a downgrade, almost like taking a pay cut. Well, that's what it felt like to most people, and they looked at it and said, yeah, no, maybe I'll buy a 2-3-year-old version instead. Sales started to plummet. Another reason, it was far too heavy. When we talk about the weight of these things, almost 5,000 pounds, weighing almost as much as a BMW X5 with the 40i, it just became ridiculous. The BMW M4 Competition, which one of its closest rivals, far lighter, far quicker, and far more impressive. It also had one of their best engines, their inline 6, and BMW didn't get up the ghost. Why did Mercedes to go all in and come up with a little 4-cylinder engine that nobody even asked for and nobody wanted? The third is sort of a fake driving experience. You know, the V8, you feel the thrust, you feel that torque build, you hear it, the rumble and the chassis and the vibration, and it was the true authentic driving experience. But many comment with the latest version, including what I've experienced, that I've driven them too. It feels almost too much electric. Well, you have a turbo 4 that's creating a lot of power. There's a little bit of that extra electronic and electric push, which makes it feel a little fake. The torque vectoring feels a little over-assisted, and quite honestly, the car does not feel as authentic. It feels a little pushed, a little forced, and a little digitized. It almost feels like a video game. The fourth reason is the over-complex drivetrain. I mean, now you're not just worried about internal combustion drivetrains with direct injection and turbocharging and heat and all of those things that we know are common problems in a lot of vehicles these days. Now you're adding a whole nother layer. You're adding inverters and batteries, electric motors, and there's another whole element that can cause you painful, expensive repairs down the road. Now, I personally have a Ferrari 296 GTB, and I know all about it. The conversation about heavy depreciation is impacted primarily because the hybrid conversation. Less and less people are enthusiastic about the hybrids because the battery technology is not yet proven. The obsolescence of the very battery technology is changing. That means a lot of the batteries today will likely be obsolete in a few short years, and the constant evolution of improvement of the technology means where's that going to leave this car in a few years? The AMG with the 4-cylinder engine feels like it could be very quickly obsolete. What about the maintenance costs, replacement of the batteries? The cost of replacement batteries might be in that $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 range in some cases for bigger batteries. Cars like this may only be $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, but you know what? 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road, who knows? The fifth reason really comes down to price creep. I mean, let's talk about this. With an increase of $10,000 to $15,000 over 4 short years, and also cutting the cylinder count, having what most perceive as half an AMG or an AMG Light in this case, most people are just not okay with that. I'm not okay with that. I mean, if they came out with an improved, even an AMG version, possibly with a hybrid, would be okay. Maybe that old V8, 4-liter twin-turbo V8 with, say, 550 horse, and then add a little electrification. Now you're at 800 horsepower. Hey, that might work. I could get on board, but not cutting the cylinder count in half just to overload it with more electrification just to bring it back to where it should have been in the first place. That doesn't sit well with most people. And on top of it, the increase in that cost to get on board with that newer technology means nobody really cares. Nobody's buying it. And that's truly a big reason. People are just not getting what they counted on. AMG enthusiasts and lovers love the great cars. They love that sound, that oral sense. Why do you think BMW is sticking with their inline 6 and many of their inline 3-liter turbocharged 6s in their M cars means that even BMW recognizes that there's a core group of enthusiasts that you don't want to mess with, the ones that keep the company afloat. Sure, it's not volume sales, but that's the fundamental baseline that brings people in. It's those halo cars that brings people into the showroom, and then they shop around, realize, okay, 120 grand's a little rich, but I'll get into this 330. That's great. The same thing applies here. If you don't have that premier car, like a V8 powered AMG car, you have nothing that the buyers and loyalists aspire to. They don't care anymore. If everything in their showroom from the base C300 up to the C43 up to the C63 are all based on a 2-liter turbo 4, what sounds so exciting? Nothing. Nobody wants, nobody cares. So now, fortunately, what's been happening, AMG's recognized that people aren't buying it. Sales are down by 1/3, nobody cares. And of course, sales are going toilet bound. That being said, it's not just a conversation about the environment and the economics of what people have and don't have the money. It's really more of those that have will buy, and they're just not buying this car. So AMG is now looking back at, within a year to 2 years, coming back with an AMG that looks more like a V8. Time will tell, and we'll share those stories with you as time goes on. With all that said, be sure to check out right there. If you're looking maybe one of the older used Mercedes, there's my list. Maybe you're thinking BMW instead. Yeah, right there. One of the best competitors. Those are the cars I would probably choose. Hope to see each and every one of you real soon, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.